And well, then we're gonna go and do whatever we need to do next. We'll talk to that weird guy in the middle. Hopefully he'll let us know. And that creepy girl at the fountain's gonna be there. Hopefully Dean can talk. It's gonna be very hard to do anything with that girl that doesn't say anything. Man, she's fucking scary as hell, though. I feel bad for her. Oh, hey, that's you. Christina raises an eyebrow. She nods slowly, then puts her hand in front of her throat, closes it slowly, then points at you. She shivers slightly and then shakes her head. Christina looks blankly at you, then touches her head, smiles, then shakes her head. Ah, she's actually smiling. She waves her hand, then shakes her head. She then nods in the direction of the casino. Not yet. She nods with an something look, and then she makes a circle with her hand, repeats it twice more. Blah, blah, blah. She puts both of her hands in front of her mouth, in front of her, and then makes a motion with her hands of writing something. I don't know. She nods, looks impressed. She shrugs, then she points it to you and shrugs. Bow, bow. She moves her finger in a wider circle, then raises her hand over her eyes. She shakes her hands in a motion of 2 fingers walking, and makes a motion of 2 fingers walking. Got you. She shakes her head and then rolls her eyes. We're just pissing her off now. She nods and raises a finger. A robot. She shakes her head and then pumps her fist near her chest. She nods. She makes a motion with her hands around her chin, drawing it down, and then she raises her hands and clenches something I didn't read in time. An angry bearded man. She points at your pit boy. She shakes her head, points at your pit boy again. What does she want? What is it? Oh, Elijah? She nods, looks concerned, taps the side of her head, and expands her hands. She nods and circles her ear. Someone smart and crazy? Yep, and nuts. Look at that. She nods and then frowns. Well, frowns. Read that wrong. My bad. She frowns, raises 2 fingers, and then has them walking together. Then she looks down at the 2 fingers, blah, blah, blah. And then she chops her hand down and draws 2 fingers apart. One of the fingers she points at herself. She cut you off from someone? That's my guess. She nods. Really? That's a little different. She frowns, shakes her head, and even more so at husband. She shakes her head but rolls it side to side. Huh. She hesitates, then waves her hand. She nods and looks at you a little surprised. Why can't she do this? Why do I have to read it? Can't she just fucking do it? She raises an eyebrow, looks at you. No, she kind of does it. There we go. You can see the raised eyebrow. She nods slowly, studying you. She seems to be gauging you again. She makes a slow circle motion after a moment, taps her wrist. She frowns, then cups her hands to her ear. She points in the direction of the main gate, then she points at your collar, shakes her head, and then locks her hands around her neck. Then her hands lash outwards, fingers split. Oh, okay, no, she's making it look like it's gonna blow up. I see. Oh, okay, or the collar's off. I see. She nods slowly, as if thinking, then she raises an eyebrow, looks skeptical, then shrugs. She points downwards, making a circle around her, then back at the same spot, and then her finger drifts, circling, and something. Didn't read in time. Damn it! Damn you, woman! She shakes her head, points at herself, then points at you, nods. I'm getting a lot of speech checks from this girl. She nods. Bum bum bum. She nods once. She slowly shakes her head. She points at the ground, then moves each leg outward, straddling the place where she's pointing. She nods. Blah blah blah. She frowns, shakes her head, pauses, and then tilts her head slightly, nods slowly. She moves her fingers in a circle, frowns, and drags her hands down over her eyes. She raises them again, points to you. She nods, she raises an eyebrow, points at you, makes a circle, then points at your feet. She smiles and nods. Ah, man. Getting this down. She repeats the circling motion again. This time she lowers her hand and circles her finger inward. Blah blah blah, still pointing at the ground between you. She raises an eyebrow. She waits. After a second, she raises her eyebrow again. Ooh, she probably doesn't know what I'm talking about. She looks at you for a second, studying you, then nods. She points at you, then points at the casino and slowly shakes her head, and then points in the direction of the main gate. She looks at you for a moment, glances at your collar, shrugs. She then lightly grabs her neck with both hands, holds it. Then her hands fall away. She looks at you, looks at the exit, and nods. She slowly shakes her head and then points to the ground. Point at that ground. My bad. She frowns, glances in the direction of the casino, then the exit, and then back in the direction of the casino. She shrugs without strength or conviction. She isn't looking at you when she does. She looks, blah blah blah, whatever, in a circle in front of her. Christina shakes her head and then pauses and makes a small circle with her thumb and forefinger. Did this guy tell us? Oh, she points at you and then makes a motion putting something in her palm. I was going to say, did this guy tell us that this was Christine? Or did we automatically just assume that it was Christine and found out it was Christine? She didn't tell us. That would be kind of crazy. Alright, I believe the guy told us though, because it was telling. I knew it was Christine before we found it. I'm just saying. Alright, let's go ahead and continue. She frowns, shakes her head. Why would I even ask that? My bad. I should have looked at the other options. You want a small circle? Alright, let's see what else we got. Christina shakes her hand, then pauses and makes a small circle with her thumb and forefinger. She points at you and makes a motion of putting something in her palm. Yes, we've done this one. Magic tricks. She examines the chips for a second, raises it to her eye, and then turns it to the side, gauging in the diameter and width. She runs her finger over the surface slowly, checking the engraving. She then tosses the chip back at you. She then pretends to look around. She sees something on the floor, then pretends to bend down and pick it up. Something, something, something. She smiles, nods. I didn't read it all, I'm sure. I would have got that if I did. She stands still for a second, then stops and slowly makes the motion of bending down and scooping something up. Then she holds an imaginary object in her hand as if heavy and puts it in front of her as if on a table. She hefts and looks at the small box and pulls it on top of the object, looks at it, then reaches down and holds up a small 0. She smiles and nods. Sweet, give me that experience. She points at your Pip-Boy, makes a motion of opening it up and removing something from it. She then raises her hands and makes the motion of smashing it and holding up the remains. You need a battery, a fission battery, scrap metal. Oh shit, that's what she needs. A battery? A fishing battery, and she can